Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending this webinar. My name is Julie Tallman, and our subject today, we're going to talk about the key to avoiding passive real estate lock-in. This movement is so important to us. We've been working on this for just under 2 years, and we just now launched the technology that solves this challenge for so many passive real estate investors. So we're really celebrating this rollout, and we're just excited to share with you. I'll be your MC. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. First of all, we're going to be recording this, and an email will be sent out to any of you that want to view that can't finish this. And even more importantly, if there's anybody that you think needs to see this information, any other passive investors out there that you want to help. Second of all, there's a chat at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and pop in, let us know your name, where you're viewing from, and we would love to hear from you. Excuse me. And finally, there's also Q&A at the bottom. And this is where you're going to want to put, type any questions that you have. We do have some questions that have come through registrants before, but anything that you have, if you've got a question now, you can populate that, or you can wait as we go through the material and see if some of your questions are answered. Well, I'll filter through those through the process either way. And then pretty soon here, I'm going to hand the reins over to Christian Sadler, and he will lead. Oh, my books are trying to come in on the conversation as well behind me. Pretty soon, I'll hand the conversation over to Christian, and he'll lead us through most of this webinar. However, I wanted to introduce you to all of our guests today. So Christian Sadler is our VP of Investor Relations. He's the PREIshare sponsored Fundication show host. It's important to note that he's had over 18 years of commercial and residential experience. He's worked with in almost every facet of real estate, and he loves real estate, most importantly. Vadim Ray is our VIP guest for today. He is the Deputy Director and Lead Investor Relations Manager for Fairwinds Capital Investments. And Fairwinds is one of our PREIshare approved sponsors. So you'll learn what that means as well through this conversation. He is a Navy veteran. Thank you, Vadim. And also he is the investing educational guide for a military-oriented real estate investment education program and a holistic financial wellness coach. So I'm excited to see what you have to say about this and for all of your experience. Kent Anderson is our Chief Investment Officer with PREIshare, and he came to us because he had over 20 years in institutional investment. Our founder and CEO, Mike Anderson, is his brother, and he kept saying, hey, our family's in real estate. You need to get into real estate. And I don't know if it was reluctant or by force, but he came over to the real estate world and gave it another 20 years and is now, like I said, our Chief Investment Officer and our fund manager. He is the brain behind so much of what we do. So we may have special guest Michael Anderson, our CEO, popping in. If he does, then I'll go ahead and give him an introduction as well. I'll introduce him now. He's got over 45 years in real estate experience, especially as a sponsor. He understands passive investing. It's his passion. He tried to retire, he couldn't, and he started PREIshare to help solve some of the problems and challenges that we face. So hopefully he'll be able to make an appearance as well and give his 2 cents on any of your questions. Okay, Christian, I think we are ready for you to take the lead and start our presentation. What do you say?
All right, that sounds great. Let me jump right into it here.
Wonderful.
All right, just want to verify everybody can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to run through this information as quickly as possible because I want to make sure I will leave time for all of you to ask any questions that you have, especially with some of the guests that we have on the line. I have a ton of respect for Vadim and what him and his team are doing, our fund manager, Kent, and hopefully you guys do get the opportunity to ask questions of Mike Anderson as well. So what is a passive investor? This is what I want to start with because this is going to set the tone for the entire conversation. And not only have I been a real estate investor since I was 22 years old, full time, I've also been in the education space, helping people learn how to branch into the industry of real estate investing. And it's so interesting how many conversations I've had with doctors, attorneys, and professionals that think they need to invest in real estate. So they come to an education firm and they start talking about how they want to fix and flip homes. Guys, fix and flipping homes is not a passive business, okay? It really is not a passive income whatsoever. And so some of them, especially nowadays, it's gotten very popular. They'll say, oh, I want to be in the short-term rental business. Again, that is not a passive business whatsoever. It is very much active investing. Even owning rental properties, guys, you're still going to be active if you are the one that is the owner and the manager. And even if you're not the manager, and I'm sure that some of the real estate guys can attest to this that are on the line, even if you're not the manager, you're still dealing with the challenges of that property. You're managing your managers if you have hired it all out. So even me, when I was flipping properties back in the day, and I hired every aspect of it, it was so labor intensive from a mental standpoint, an emotional standpoint, and so much more. So please understand that anything where you are the active participant in the deal, even if it means owning apartment complexes, that is not passive investing. Passive investing is when you are really good at something, maybe a doctor, attorney, as I mentioned before, or a dentist, or you're in the tech field. We see a lot of tech professionals and just other entrepreneurs. You're really good at what you do, but you need to take that money that you're making and put it into an investment that will grow that wealth. And so you find somebody who is the active investor and you put your money with them and you trust in them to go out there and get you a return. That is passive investing. And over all the years now of being in the real estate world, I'm starting to realize that's the only true passive way of investing your money is you go find a really great operator and you invest your money with them and let them go take care of the active investing. So who is this for? It's for an investor who owns a passive interest in a current real estate syndication, and they want to sell that interest potentially. So the thing that we found is many of you don't define yourself as a real estate investor. You don't define yourself as a passive investor. You don't really define yourself as anything but who you are. You might call yourself a mother or a father or a tech professional. You might be an entrepreneur, a business owner. Oftentimes in the real estate world, you're called a limited partner, an LP, or you have an LP interest. You're a passive investor. And sometimes this could also be for a GP sponsor, so an active investor who also has passive interests that they can and want to potentially sell. So our agenda, we just went through the introduction. I'm going to talk about the big lie in the industry, the real issue, introducing PREIshare, talking about waking up an industry and some of the market intelligence there, becoming the bridge, and how to get started. Guys, it's your turn. If you've ever felt locked in a good investment or a bad one, then this is your opportunity to potentially find that liquidity that you've been looking for. And then I, of course, want to bring in the experts and allow for an open question and answer session. You ever been in a situation where you invested money and then on down the road, the whole reason you invested was because you were putting your kids through college in the future, and your kid got into that college and it was way more expensive than you thought, and all of a sudden you need that money out, but it might be locked into a deal? You ever been in a situation where you just had that dream car or dream vacation, and now you want your money out of an investment, whether it's going good or bad? Sometimes those life needs are more important than what you signed up for, but unfortunately, there hasn't been really a solution. Well, we built it, and it's the PREIshare Listing Hub. This is the solution. So what is this big lie that I talked about? For as long as the industry has existed, sponsors of real estate syndications have written their rules in ways that limit the options for their passive investors, that actually stop you from having liquidity. And they've perpetuated this narrative that if you are investing with them, you're investing in real estate. and real estate is an illiquid investment. The truth is, you're not investing in real estate if you're a passive investor. You are investing in a company that owns real estate. And it's such a big differentiator because this is where many people can wrap their mind around it. The simple fact of, if you went out there and invested in a company like Apple, for example, or Tesla, you're investing in the company that builds cars or builds computers, right? And it's the same thing here. So those shares can be bought and sold. They're just simply limited most of the time by the rules in those initial offering documents. So we at PREIshare are now pushing for a movement within the industry that allows for the liquidity, not only allows for it, but we want to make sure that we facilitate movement within the ownership of these passive interests. So the real issue is, those sponsors, this was not malicious intent. They weren't deceiving you with this lie that I called it. Most of the time, they wanted to set the proper expectation with their investors. If you invest with them and the plan for that property is 5 years, they don't want you thinking that you're going to get your money out early if they have to facilitate it. Because quite frankly, most syndicators in the beginning, they're not wealthy, right? They're not out there just living off of their investments and they can do whatever they want and they can pay you out of a deal. Most syndicators have to scale in order to make a good living. In order to get to the point where they have that lifestyle, they have to scale their business. And so they want to know who's in their deal. They want to know who they're dealing with that is investing the money in the deal, and that that's somebody they actually want to do business with. And they don't want to have to go backfill an operating transaction when they're probably focused on the new deal that they're out there focused on buying. So if they have to scale and they're constantly making offers on properties and they want to raise money for those properties, they don't want to have to go backfill out somebody's previous investment in the process. And quite frankly, until now, there hasn't been somebody on the middle ground that could align the interests of the passive investor and the syndicator, because the syndicators are out there trying to scale and build a business and provide good returns to their passive investors. The passive investors are thinking about their momentary needs, and they're thinking about what they wanted when they first invested and what they want now if they need liquidity. So that's where PREIshare comes in. We have over 100 years of combined real estate experience, and we are bridging the industry gaps. In fact, it's well over 100 years. And, you add that in there. I mean, some of our stats, $7.3 billion in transactions. Now, I do have to give a caveat to this because I never want to try to promote myself as anything bigger than I am. Mike and Kent are about $7 billion of that. So, there's not, the rest of the team fills in other gaps. But I have been in the real estate world for over 20 years and done many different types of transactions. Mike sold his last company with $1 billion in assets under management. We have a legal staff that have over 25 years in real estate securities. And again, I talked about we have well over 100 years collective real estate experience. But this is waking up an industry. And, we have Vadim on here that will share his perspective as somebody that has been in the industry. But we have other people that have done amazing things in the world of real estate syndication. Guys like Neil Bawa, Mike Howard, Blaine Walker. These guys have multiple decades and multiple billions of dollars in real estate under their belt. And they are talking about how crucial this is to the industry. So the Listing Hub, very simply, is for buyers a place where you can go shop for existing interests. You can browse the current deals, the ones that people want to liquidate, just as if you were going and shopping on the stock market and researching, companies. You can go research real estate offerings. And you can buy interest with a proven performance and track record rather than buying into a deal or investing into a deal early. You can buy cash flow at a discount. In fact, that's the whole thesis around our fund, is buying this cash flow at a discount from the Listing Hub. So for sellers, this is an opportunity for you to sell your fractional interest, liquidate those interests that you have and free up capital. And one thing that we talk about is we really believe that there's going to be some savvy passive investors that use this wisely, that figure out that if they can get it, they can find good sponsors that are doing value add real estate, and they can come in and they can buy in early. They can see a huge gain within their investment and then turn around and sell that investment with some of that gain, leaving some meat on the bone for that buyer that's going to be coming in and buying it. They can then reinvest those gains and get a compounding effect. Because what you'll find is some investors are going to come to this simply because they want to see the performance of the deal. So if you can come in and you can buy early with your trusted sources, and then you can turn around and sell it to somebody who wants to just base it off of the performance that's already done, you may be able to get a huge compounding effect. So some really exciting ways of the way that we believe that this is going to be able to be used. So how do you get started? First thing is you're going to do a call with one of our staff members. And Julie happens to be one of the people that takes a lot of those calls and helps people and guides them through adding their listing onto the listing hub. After it's on there, you're going to start collecting offers. We have accredited investors, and that is the criteria for somebody to be able to buy on the listing hub. So we have accredited investors that are on there shopping. One of those is going to be the PREIshare fund. We are raising a $100 million fund to buy from the listing hub so that we can create instant liquidity for those people that need it and have deals that fit our criteria. And then you execute a sale. PREIshare does not get involved in the end transaction unless we are personally buying those shares. But what we can do is we can actually help you bridge that conversation if it needs to be had with your sponsor, because that sponsor does still need to approve the sale if you choose to sell your interests. So we can help you in that process by bridging that gap of the conversation and helping everybody, kind of come to an agreement and get this transaction done. And right now, for a limited time, we're offering you a free listing. So if you are passively invested in real estate right now and you want to sell some of your interests that you have, we have the opportunity where you can actually claim a free listing. And what you're going to do is just go to PREIshare.com/free listing. PREIshare.com/free listing. That's going to give you the opportunity to get your first listing for free. So even if you just have an investment that you've been considering, hey, if I could get a good amount of this right now, this upside gain that I've had over the last few years, because it's on a low interest rate and the operator's done a great job, and you just want to kind of see what kind of offer you could get, go claim your free listing. I'll put this back up here at the end, but again, I wanted to get through this information as quickly as possible so that we could bring on our special guests. And Julie gave them a great introduction, so I won't spend a little time here. But again, Mike Anderson, over $7 billion in real estate transactions as a real estate syndicator, and is the visionary behind this whole concept. Kent Anderson, again, 20 years in institutional investments, managing billion-dollar portfolios, and then Mike was able to convince him to come over to the real estate world and work his magic over there. And he spent another 20 years managing billions of dollars in real estate. And then we have Vadim Ray, again, a military man who has built an exceptional organization that are in the multifamily space. And he is going to be able to share from his experience, not as a member of PREIshare, but as somebody who is backing the cause of what we're doing and is one of the first approved sponsors with PREIshare, meaning he offers this type of liquidity to his investors. Thank you guys for being here. I would love it if you guys can come off of mute, and then let's open it up for questions and answers. Julie, I'm going to let you field the questions, and I will be here to answer any that come way.
Perfect. It looks like our first question is from Mary. She asks, what type of listings can be posted on the listing hub?
Nobody else is going to jump in. I'll take this one. again, and I want to reiterate this, this is fractional shares of existing real estate syndications. So if you have an existing share that you've invested in with a sponsor and you want to liquidate that, that's the type of listings that can be in there. Now, we have added, and this is a side note, this isn't for you as a passive investor, but we have added premium listings for approved sponsors where they can actually put an existing raise on the listing hub, but there's some things you've got to go through to qualify for that. But for the majority of what we're talking about, it is fractional shares of real estate syndications.
Perfect. Thank you. We have an attendee that says, how do I, or the buyer, assess the changing valuation of the shares or the underlying assets? Really great question.
That should be a candid question. Yeah.
Yeah, why don't I go ahead and go with that? There's a few ways you can do that. If you're owning a passive real estate investment, usually your sponsor is going to have some information on that already without having to reinvent the wheel. They'll start with the financials on the property, the NOI with the market cap rate is a really easy way to do it. And sometimes they'll go to a broker and you get an opinion on the value of the property, and then they'll figure out what the return is for each one of the investors. You apply your percentage on that. So that's a few ways that I would do it. As a fund manager, says I'm going to be buying an awful lot of these investments, hopefully be able to get some for our fund. One of the things I will do is I'll start with looking at the cash flow of the property, how it's done, and meeting its projections and how consistent they've been with the distributions. I'll look at the sponsor, see if it's one of our qualified sponsors where we've rated them and we know that they meet a minimum standard that investors want to see. And then I'll look at the type of asset that it is, where if it's office, multifamily, whatever that is, I'll look at its location and use risk adjustments to the valuation based on if you take the cash flow of the property and you say, okay, I'm going to discount it at such and such percentage that I need for my return, then that's a way to value the property. And then I'll do a risk adjustment based on all those factors I mentioned, whether it be the sponsor, the location of the property, or the type of property that it is.
And I'll just add in here as well, because I've been talking to a lot of the investors that are wanting to sell their shares. There's a few things that you want to think about from that perspective. And one is the deal itself. So some of those things that Kent mentioned about how well is that deal operating and what asset class is it in and some of those things. But it's also going to come down to your need. So if you have an extreme need for money, you may want to offer it out at a discount so you can sell it quickly. If this is something where you don't necessarily need to sell, but you believe there's value there and you're willing to take that value if you can get an offer, then you may want to price your listing higher. And we also have the opportunity where you can actually just put it out there of make me an offer, and you can allow the market to come to you and bring you an offer based on their analysis. So there's a few ways that you can do it. And there is no set price per se. PREIshare is definitely not going to be the one setting the price unless the fund is buying it and we're negotiating there. So really it comes down to, just like any real estate transaction, you price it based on your desire to sell and the actual asset itself.
Thank you. One of the questions that we had prior to the webinar, people say, what do I need from my sponsor to go forward with a listing? And Christian touched on this just a little bit, but who would like to cover that question for us?
I can answer that.
I was going to say, it sounds like a perfect Mike Anderson question. Go for it.
Having been a sponsor for 72 or for 42 years, but really what you need is every operating agreement is different, and that's kind of the rules of the road of how you can sell and what you can do with your interest. But most of them, you have to offer them back to the sponsor, and then the sponsor can offer them back to the other investors in that investment group or that special entity owning that property. And what you really need to do is, if you want to get it on the listing hub and you want to get the very best price, which gives you obviously the most exposure to other accredited investors, is we have a clause that you can send to your sponsor that will modify the operating agreement so that you can offer it simultaneously to the sponsor, to other members, and anybody else, including the listing hub. And if you don't want to do that yourself, we have been doing that with people that have been listing on the listing hub and working with their sponsors. And so far, we've got a 100% track record of getting sponsors to agree with just making that simple change in the operating agreement. So we're more than happy to help you with that and step up and get that done, provided that the sponsor is agreeable to it. And most sponsors see the need and see that that's a good fiduciary action on their part in response to their investor needs. So happy to help you with it.
Perfect. Thanks, Michael. Vadim, I think this next one has your name written all over it. Samantha wants to know, are sponsors interested in the idea of this secondary marketplace?
Fantastic question. Absolutely. So as a sponsor, as somebody that wants to take care of the project and our investors, we're interested in whatever makes the most sense for the project and our investors. So for our investors, for one reason or another, want to sell their shares, more than happy to support them in that, especially if it means that we get a new investor in the project who also believes in it and also wants to see the success of the team and the project.
Amen. Yeah.
And add a little bit onto that too. That's it. I mean, yeah, they get another investor, and I think that's a critically important thing nowadays, especially with the higher interest rates. The cost of debt has gotten such that it's sometimes more attractive not to take on as much debt, and well, many times the lender won't let you anyway these days. But being able to get equity, new sources of equity, is a vital thing for sponsors, and certainly that introduces that opportunity, because you're replacing one investor that continues to be one of your clients with a brand new investor that didn't cost you anything. So,
Thank you. The addition. Yep. All right. Next question. Ryan asks, and this is another great one. If I've owned property for many years, but I can't refinance in the current market, can I sell or access the equity through this platform?
I guess, Ryan, it depends on what kind of real estate that is. If it's something that you have whole ownership in, probably that our platform doesn't really set up to do that. But there's other sources for that that we can maybe direct you to. If it is something that you're a passive investor in, and somebody else is operating and managing that property, then probably the answer is yes, and we could help you.
And I think this is one of the things that we like to clarify. These are for passive interests. And so, as Mike said, if you own that property yourself and you're just trying to access the equity, this is probably not the platform for it. And even if you have syndicated this deal, but you're wanting to sell to, get your GP interest out of it, and that kind of jeopardizes who's now managing the deal, that's not really what this is designed for either. These are for passive shares, not for active investor shares.
Thank you. Rama wants to know what types of assets what asset types can I list?
It depends on what you mean by what asset types. If it is a passively owned, or I guess in legal terms, a limited partnership or a limited liability membership, that is of a company that owns the real estate, then those absolutely qualify. That's what we do. If it's asset class, for example, office space versus multifamily versus any income producing asset that's right up the alleyway for the listing hub. So if it's income producing real estate, then asset class doesn't matter.
Yep. And if you have a question on that, we'll answer, go to PREIshare.com/free listing. You can make an appointment and chat with us. If you don't know if this is for you, we'll help you figure it out for sure. Ryan asks another question. Does the listing hub help in negotiations between the buyer and the seller?
That is a hard no.
Yeah, that's an absolute no. I'm surprised that everybody didn't chime in immediately. We can't be involved in it. That would imply that there's a broker-dealer relationship, and that would be appropriate.
And we don't take income on the transaction. We're not involved in the transaction other than just hooking up the buyer and the seller.
Yep.
Classified listing hub. Buyer to seller, seller to buyer. Perfect. All right. What is and we kind of covered this, but this is something that I think warrants going over again. Christian, what is the process for listing your shares and making the exchange?
Yeah. So, and it comes down to right now, you can get a free listing, but at any time you could go to the listing hub, you could set up an account, and then you're going to list your shares. Right now, the pricing is just $50 a month. So we're really just breaking into this industry and making it so accessible for anybody that wants to do so. You'll go through a process where right now we want to hold your hand through that process, and we want to guide you along, make sure you get that listing on there the way that it needs to be. And you want to put as many additional documents as you can in there, so that when an accredited investor goes and looks at that investment, they're not have to do as much requesting back and forth for you. Now that's maybe up to you. If you want to do a lot of that back and forth, then do so. But I would suggest get together the original offering documents, get together, any updates that you've gotten along the way from your sponsor, any supporting documents that somebody's going to need to analyze that deal. I would get those together, whether you include them, which you can, in your listing, or just have them ready, do so. And then you're going to get approached. And so when you get approached by the fund or any other accredited investor, then you'll just start that communication from there. And we do suggest that you use some sort of an escrow service, be that an attorney or something else, somebody that can kind of handle and make sure that the interests are being passed the proper way and whatnot. And in there is going to have to be a conversation with your sponsor, just making sure that they agreed to the sale.
Thank you. Do you want to expand on that at all, Vadim, in terms of, because one question that I've been asked just from talking to people is, how do I, we've said, how do I talk to my sponsor about this, but are they going to be mad? Do I, what most sponsors I've learned are pretty open-minded and used to figuring out how to make things work. Is there anything, maybe if somebody's maybe feeling a little trepidation about talking to their sponsor, what advice would you give?
The first piece of advice I would give is, I'm concerned if you're in an investment where you're uncomfortable talking to your sponsor. So if that's the case, let's have a talk. The PREIshare team is happy to chat on your behalf, and let's figure that out, because that seems to point to a larger problem, I think. Otherwise, your sponsor should be willing and open to interact with you, engage with you about any questions you have about the project and any opportunities you have to be able to replace your investment. And you're the investor. You have legitimate reasons to back out and sell your share for life events, for other investment opportunities, for a whole host of reasons. So I certainly encourage you to reach out to your sponsor and have that conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Got a new question here. Can I use this to find JV partners?
Not really.
Is that JV or JP?
Actually, they did type JP partners. Sorry. Can I use this to find JP partners?
I'm wondering if they meant JV.
That's why I said JV, but is JP a thing? I know there's JV partners in real estate.
Well,
So-
if it is JV, sorry, Kent, you go ahead.
No, it's Mike, but go ahead,
Mike.
Christian. I'll follow up with you.
Okay. I was just going to say, if it is JV partners, that's not really what this is designed for. It's not designed for you to market your deals. You know, who knows if we could branch into that space in the future and create it and, you know, more of a community aspect for that. But as of right now, that's not what it's designed for. It's really designed to sell your LP shares. Now, if it is JP partners, I'm trying to think of what that could potentially mean, and I can't off the top of my head. So, Mike, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, I would just suggest, because the question is not really clear to us, why don't just call one of us on the PREIshare team. If we can to help you with it, likely we have a very extensive Rolodex because we've been in the business just for so long. We can probably direct you to somebody that can get done whatever it is you're trying to get done. So just feel free to call us.
Really good point, Mike. Thank you. And just so that everybody knows, I did drop in the chat the PREIshare.com/free listing. So that's where you're going to want to go to book a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation, whatever you need to get your questions answered. We're definitely here to help you. This movement that we're doing comes with a lot of education, and we're committed to putting that time in for sure. Yes, Christian.
I know this is for the audience, and I want to make sure we get all questions answered. But out of a little bit of personal thing here, it's not every day we get all of these great men on the call, and I think that it would be great if we could have you guys talk about the challenges that we're seeing in the current market and how you believe that this liquidity option can help for those that are dealing with some of those challenges.
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
As Christian said at the outset, I did work in institutional investments for a few decades, and, information be reflected in stock prices, bond prices, whatever those are, in minutes and seconds. And the information age, it goes so fast. Real estate is still a very inefficient market, even in the information age. It's a very inefficient market, and a good sponsor can take advantage of that. And a bad sponsor, or somebody that becomes a real estate collector, because I had an investment that was in a great market and it did incredibly well, and I wanted to capture that gain because I could see that market was going to change when interest rates started to increase. And that there had been such a run up, and it was multifamily, and there had been such an incredible run up. I wanted to get those gains. I couldn't do that because of the restrictions in the operating agreement, and I think that's unfortunate because it would have been nice to be able to capture that gain. Well, now that we've got a listing hub, and because we've got a good track record in working with sponsors to get them to amend their documents, it's very attractive for investors who understand how important it is to be able to capture those gains. It's not just getting out of a bad deal to be able to get into another deal. That's often one of the perceptions that people have about the listing of it. It gives them that opportunity. That's also to capture those gains. And people that have made money in real estate, and that's where a lot of today's millionaires have come from. They've made it in the movement of money by dynamically releveraging their investment again and again and again and capturing those gains. That's how it's done. And the listing hub is going to afford them the opportunity to do that. It's really important to be able to understand that. And as smart sponsors, I think will definitely want to let their investors do that, because not only do they get new investors, they become a very attractive sponsor because of that. And the cost of their equity is going to be going down because of that.
Nadeem, I'd love to get your take on this as well. You're actively investing in this market and dealing with current assets. What are some of the challenges you're seeing, and how do you think this may help some of those?
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Some of the challenges we're seeing are certainly the challenges of floating interest rate loans and rental market in certain cities struggling to keep up with the projections that a lot of operators intended. And that requires obviously new capital, that requires rescue capital. And in some cases, in a lot of cases, really, those rescue capital opportunities are quite attractive. And so for a lot of current investors and current deals, if they have returns they're happy with, and then they see these 2x returns in 2 to 3 years, they could then liquidate their current investments and shift those over into those rescue capital opportunities. I think in the broader sense as well, life happens. I think Julia was mentioning earlier that people have vacations they want to take. There's life changes, there's emergencies, they want to increase their savings. All those reasons are legitimate reasons and enough to choose to liquidate current investments that otherwise previously weren't liquid, right? So these real estate shares that originally people expected these to be fully liquid until a 100% refinance or a full sale. And now there's an opportunity to actually tap into that liquidity for whatever reason you have.
I was speaking with a woman the other day, Vadim, who said, I've just been buying real estate, passive real estate shares, buying. All of a sudden in this market, they're not distributing as well as they were. And now all of a sudden I've got to liquidate. She said, I never thought I would run into that problem. So yeah, perfect. We covered this a little bit, but it's worth covering again. Steve wants to know, how do I get my sponsor to let me sell my shares? Because again, this is a continuous concern. Vadim took a swat at that. Does anybody else?
Best answer is just put them in touch with us. We've got a 100% track record of working with sponsors to get it done. You don't have to do that. I mean, if you want to do it, we really appreciate it. We do. But if you want to make sure it gets done, we'll take care of that for you.
Yeah, I think so much can be done with just communication, just open communication.
Yeah.
If you let them know you think you're going to be able to get an offer, they're not going to have to deal with it. I mean, I think that's the big thing. If you go to your sponsor and just say, I want my money out of this deal, they start thinking about all the ways that they're going to have to facilitate that. But if you go to them or have us, kind of breach that conversation. But if you just say, hey, listen, there's a listing hub out there. I think I would like to liquidate my shares and I want to try it out, with this listing hub, see if I can get my money. That all of a sudden takes the weight off of the sponsor's shoulders to try to facilitate that for you. It should make it fairly easy.
Many times these sponsors set it up the way they did with their operating agreement because they bought the same template that basically is used by everybody in the industry. It defaulted to this. It wasn't something they actually elected to do. And when they understand that it's not in the best interest of investors and that there's an opportunity to get a ton more investors, 7 out of 10 accredited investors don't invest in real estate simply because of that perception that it's illiquid when it really isn't. That's the big lie in the industry. It's perception, and that's not the reality. It shouldn't be.
And luckily, we are doing the hard work of also having the conversations with the real estate attorneys that are putting these things together, and even they are seeing the potential of how this could really benefit their clients to have more liquidity options within the offering, and how that can help more business get done by the sponsors themselves. So I think what you'll find, and we don't have to harp on this anymore, but I think what you'll find is your sponsor's probably going to be really grateful that you made the introduction to us. And they may even decide to become an approved sponsor so that we can highlight them and some of the good stuff that they're doing out there.
And we're going to make it worth their while to do that because of our fundication show and many other things that we can do to help them to get new investors and to help them to get recognized. We want to work with the sponsors that have the vision and for the opportunity this is going to create, and we'll make them successful. Christian's got a great story on how to do that. We've helped a number of sponsors.
We also, we're talking a lot about sponsors, but we also want to talk about investment clubs and groups like that. Christian or Kent, do one of you want to chime in and educate in terms of what we can do there?
Investment clubs is a great place to get the story out. Just to, there's quite a bit of material on our website, PREIshare.com, where you can provide that, or you contact one of our team members and we'll get you some information that you can post out there on your site there for your investment club that you're involved in. We've had a number of investment clubs that have done that, and it does help to get the word out. The problem we're facing is not whether or not people want to do this, sponsors and investors. The problem we're facing is that we need people to know that it's there. That's the only issue. Huh?
Nope, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Kent.
And that's the only obstacle we're facing here. Once they find out about it, they go, well, yeah, of course we want to do that. That makes a lot of sense, whether or not you're the investor or the sponsor.
Yeah, so if you own an investment club or a member of an investment club and can talk to the owner and they want to get some extra benefits from us by helping us spread the word, there's some things that we can do to help promote your club while you promote us. So talk to us about that. I also saw here, I jumped over to the chat, and I'm not sure who Michael is, but it sounds like he might be a sponsor or is in this industry. And he says, I can't imagine that any real estate syndicator is going to want to resist the creation of a secondary marketplace. And that's what we're finding most people saying. So
we just got probably a last question here. Really good. Will this secondary market listing impact any of the SEC requirements for Reg D exemptions of the offering?
No.
Yeah, the answer is no.
It's not a solicitation or anything like that you're doing. So no, it's not.
Okay.
And you're doing the same thing that's usually provided for. Many times, many of these agreements say that they have a process. If you did want to sell it to somebody, you have to sell it to people within the group. I mean, you're doing basically the same kind of thing, only with somebody who's not inside the group. You know, it's not. No, it's not an advertisement or anything like that. We're not doing anything like that, and I don't see any one of the sellers doing that either.
So, but I am going to channel my inner Brad, because I can hear him, our partner, Brad Jacobson, who's an attorney. And he's going to say, if you have any legal questions, please contact your own legal advisor. We're not qualified to give legal advice, but from my standpoint, no. This is not a solicitation to raise money. We're just advertising somebody that needs to get out of an existing investment.
And when somebody does find a buyer, a seller does find a buyer, that new buyer is going to have to be approved by the sponsor anyway. They'll have to go to that sponsor, and if there's an accreditation requirement, they'll have to get that taken care of with the sponsor. The same as any other new investor coming in. It's the same process, and that's what keeps everything operating the way it should.
Yep, that would meet the regulatory requirement of making sure that the sponsors admitting a new accredited investor.
Yeah, and I think that's important to add that, it's not like the sponsor doesn't have to just agree. They also need to do the proper suitability, questions. Make sure this is somebody that they want in their deal. And luckily, we're requiring somebody to be an accredited investor to shop on the listing hub. And then all you have to do is just verify that they're not lying about that.
Beautiful. PREIshare team, any last thoughts or items to share?
Just help us get the word out. Help us get the word out. The more people we get to know about all this, the better the whole industry is going to be for it. It's going to help sponsors, investors, all the players are going to be benefited by this. And of course, us too. We need that as well for us to make it work. But it's an idea that we've needed to do. Mike and I, we did this syndication stuff for decades, and we recognize the need for that. And we're very glad to be able to put that forward. And in order for it to be successful, we're going to need your help.
Thank you.
Question here that we might have answered already, but I never want it to feel like we maybe glazed over somebody. Steve, who's asked a couple questions, said, how much do I have to discount my investment? I think we've addressed it already. But that really is going to come down to what is your need and what is that investment? What is the value of that investment? You don't have to discount at all. In fact, you could probably take some of your gain if it's a good operating deal but it really comes down to what the market will pay, right? So these offerings are only worth what somebody else is willing to pay, just like anything else in this world.
It's a true secondary market. When those notifications before, Mike and I, when we were doing that, we'd see people that wanted to sell their investment. They'd have to go through the process. Usually was just to sell it to other people in the deal. And most often, I never saw anybody get more than what they paid for it. Usually that's all it is. And you might have an investment that has done incredibly well. And the unfortunate thing is nobody else wants to give you the money for it because you've limited the number of buyers to the people that are in the deal. And because there isn't that many buyers, but having a secondary market out there changes that, a true secondary market. That's what's going to give liquidity. That's what's going to give the correct pricing for those investments.
Yeah, I that was going to be my sentiment. That's why we did this, is because we don't feel like real estate, as long as it's appreciating, and most real estate's appreciating even in a market like this, because of nothing else, your equity is growing because you're paying down the debt on income producing real estate. So that alone is giving you equity. And too many times I saw where our investors would sell it back to somebody else, and they were taking a discount on what they originally paid for it. And that's not right. That's not the value of the asset. It's not reflective of market conditions. Today, the real estate markets are tight, but most of you have in your assets considerable amount of economic growth, both through debt reduction, and you probably have, in most cases, still some appreciated value. And you should be able to recognize as much of that as the market will give you. So that's why we did this. We want to preserve those gains by providing a fair marketplace for those assets to be sold on.
Yeah, I just thought of a little bit of a metaphor. Let's say that you and all your friends went and bought a piece of land back in 2018, and you decided to split it up, and you were each going to have a 1 acre lot. And so you bought in for whatever that price was for that 1 acre lot. And it took the city 3 years for them to approve that development. And all of a sudden you each have 1 acre lot, and one of you wants to sell, but you can only sell to the people who originally were in that deal. Can you imagine from 2018 to 2020 to 2022 how much value you would have gained? But if you have to sell it for what you originally bought in at, you're potentially losing, half of the value that you could have gained. Whereas if you could put that on the MLS, a traditional marketplace where you sell real estate, you could probably see the majority of that gain, if not more than that gain, because people are looking at the future value. It's kind of the same thing that we're wanting to create here.
One of the worries that I heard one sponsor say once is that, if you've got people selling your deal, is that going to have a depressive effect? I would look at it another way. If you've got people selling, you also got people buying. Anytime you introduce liquidity into an industry and allow investors to come in and out, it creates opportunities that are going to drive up that industry. It's the lack of being able to do so that creates the problem for the investors. And we want to change that. We want to open that up. This is a huge, huge industry, and making it liquid is going to change things. It's going to drive a lot of money into real estate, more than it has.
Great points. Thanks, everybody. If you are a sponsor, if there's any sponsors out there, we are looking for the best sponsors to work with to bring this liquidity to your clients. And we also have quite a few sponsor services. So I'm going to put in the chat right this second a link where if you are a sponsor, you can go click on that, learn how to work with us. And then the most important thing, last page here, claim your free listing. Again, we are working with people to give them their first listing for free. Schedule a call with our team. Go to PREIshare.com/free listing. And if you have any questions, just schedule a call with us or email at listinghub@PREIshare.com, just like the slide says. And I'll put that in the chat right now as well. listinghub@PREIshare.com. And from all of us here to everybody out there, thank you so much. We really look forward to working with you. Spread the word.
Yeah, thank you so much for the great questions.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.